A bride created a 50-page binder with exact pant-one color codes that guests had to match for their outfits. She hired someone to stand at the entrance with color swatches to reject anyone off-brand. 3 bridesmaids were sent home to change because their dresses were one shade too light. She had a meltdown when someone wore the wrong shade of nude shoes. The wedding ended with half the guests missing because they failed the color inspection. Every bridesmaid received a text at 6 a.m., "You have £20 to lose or you're out." Weekly weigh-ins became mandatory, with progress photos required every single Friday without fail. One girl who was already size 2 was told to lose weight anyway because uniformity matters more than health. When the maid of honor announced her pregnancy, she was immediately fired from the wedding party for destroying the aesthetic. Before and after photos of the bridesmaids appeared online without anyone's permission, labeled as wedding inspiration. Jessica sent an email to 150 female guests with one simple demand: cut your hair to shoulder length immediately. Gift certificates to specific salons arrived in the mail with mandatory appointment times already scheduled. Her own sister refused and found herself completely uninvited to the wedding within 24 hours. At the venue entrance, Jessica stood with scissors in hand, ready to fix anyone who violated her hair policy. Security eventually dragged her away while she screamed about deliberate hair sabotage from jealous guests. Planning a wedding in Bali seemed romantic until the invoice arrived: $5,000 per person, non-negotiable, for all 150 guests. People who declined still received invoices demanding payment for their reserved spots that apparently couldn't be cancelled. A public payment tracker went up online, shaming by name everyone who hadn't paid their fair share. Even her parents refused to attend after being told they needed to cover 20 additional guests personally. The wedding was cancelled, and somehow everyone else got blamed for being unsupportive of her dreams. Security guards confiscated every phone and camera at the entrance like it was a maximum security prison. No social media posts were permitted until she released her official professional photos 6 months later. During the ceremony, someone's phone buzzed, and everything stopped for a full 10-minute screaming session directed at the mortified guest. 3 people were served with actual lawsuits for posting photos despite signing her 12-page NDA. Her wedding became more famous for legal threats than for any celebration of love. "You're pregnant? Then you're uninvited." That's what her best friend heard upon sharing her joyful baby news. Another bridesmaid was told to schedule her medically necessary C-section for after the wedding, regardless of doctor's orders. One visibly pregnant guest who showed up anyway got hidden in a back room, far from any cameras or photo opportunities. An online rant followed about how pregnant women are selfish attention seekers who should plan around other people's weddings. 3-decade-long friendships ended that weekend. $800 for a dress that looked like a literal garbage bag, that was the non-negotiable demand. Complaints were met with threats of being removed from the privilege of participating in her special day. When one bridesmaid altered her dress slightly for comfort, scissors came out, and she was physically cut out of every group photo. Signed contracts forced everyone to promise they'd never wear these hideous dresses again after the wedding. The dresses went viral online as the worst bridesmaid dresses in human history. The Registry had one rule: minimum $10,000 per gift, no exceptions, no excuses. Anyone who gave less received furious texts calling them cheap frauds and fake friends who never cared. A handmade gift, created with love over months, was thrown directly into the trash while the giver watched. A public spreadsheet appeared online ranking every guest by their gift's monetary value with full names visible. Half the reception cleared out early, with many demanding their expensive gifts be returned immediately. "12 bridesmaids, 3 rehearsals per week, 6 months of mandatory attendance for a 15-minute dance routine. Professional level skill was required, and 2 women were fired for having work conflicts that prevented perfect attendance. The wedding day arrived, and guests were forced to watch the same 15-minute routine performed 3 times because the first 2 weren't flawless. Most guests left during the second performance, unable to endure another repetition of the same choreography. The dance was posted online and became a meme for wedding cringe. Singles weren't allowed to bring dates because they might fall in love and steal her thunder. Engaged couples had to verify their wedding dates before their partners received invitations. One guest's boyfriend of 8 years was banned because they hadn't officially married yet. Someone with a clipboard checked IDs against an approved guest list at the entrance like a nightclub bouncer. For long-term couples broke up directly because of the drama her arbitrary rules created. Everyone entering the venue had to stop at a mandatory makeup station with a suggested donation of $200. The donation wasn't actually optional, security enforced it like a toll booth. 3 women had their makeup rejected and redone while 150 guests waited outside in the heat. One person was sent home for wearing unapproved red lipstick that was apparently too attention-grabbing. The ceremony started 90 minutes late because every face needed personal inspection and approval. Every bridesmaid received a pre-written speech with instructions to memorize it word for word with no deviations. The maid of honor tried adding personal touches, but the microphone was physically ripped away mid-speech. Every toast was interrupted with corrections about relationship history that didn't match the speaker's memories. The best man wasn't allowed to mention any stories involving the groom's past relationships, even from high school. Literally every word spoken about her was controlled and censored throughout the entire reception. Table assignments were determined by one factor, gift price, with cheapest givers stuck at the worst tables. The groom's entire family sat in the back corner near the noisy kitchen for insufficient financial contributions. Anyone who RSVP'd even one day late was seated outside in 95-degree summer heat with no shade. During dinner, tables were physically rearranged to separate couples who seemed too happy and were stealing attention. 20 people left before dessert, unable to handle the humiliation of her seating hierarchy. Every bachelor party activity required her written approval, and she planned to attend as quality control supervisor. Bars, clubs, and even golf were vetoed because men need constant monitoring. When they planned something without telling her, she showed up anyway with her entire bridal party in tow. The whole event was live-streamed on Instagram to ensure accountability and appropriate behavior. The groom's friends stopped speaking to him for 3 years after that controlling nightmare. 47 one-star reviews appeared online after the wedding, one for literally every vendor involved. The photographer was fired mid-ceremony for unflattering angles, but still had to provide all photos for free. The caterer never received payment because the food was adequate but not exceptional enough. The florist faced a lawsuit over daisies being 12% smaller than the signed contract specified. Every single vendor ended up suing her, and she lost every case while racking up legal fees. The entire bridal party received honeymoon invitations with a catch: pay your own way and follow my schedule. A mandatory itinerary filled every moment from 6 a.m. to midnight with group activities. Anyone wanting alone time was accused of abandonment during her special celebration trip. The groom spent 2 weeks apologizing to friends and seriously contemplating annulment. Tearful videos appeared on social media about bridesmaids being selfish for wanting their own separate vacations. Everyone who declined the invitation received a demand, handwritten apology letters, minimum 500 words, demonstrating genuine remorse. A cousin's brief note was posted online with mocking commentary about inadequate apologies from selfish people. Her grandmother, who had emergency surgery, was called a liar making excuses. 30 people found themselves blocked on all social media platforms for insufficient groveling. The phrase, "sorry I couldn't make it," was apparently a personal insult requiring extensive written penance. Any personal announcements during the wedding weekend were strictly forbidden by written agreement. Someone who got engaged earlier that week was told to hide the ring and pretend it never happened. A guest mentioned their college acceptance and was immediately escorted out for attention-seeking behavior. Signed contracts prohibited sharing any personal news for 30 days before or after her event. Attendees started calling it the celebration of enforced silence behind her back. The entire weekend required strict adherence to her vegan, gluten-free, sugar-free diet, no exceptions for anyone. Meal plans were sent weeks in advance with instructions that every guest must follow them, for unity. Someone posted an Instagram photo eating a burger the day before and was uninvited within the hour. Bags were searched at the venue entrance for contraband food, like it was an international border crossing. 3 diabetic guests had medical emergencies because even their medical glucose tablets were confiscated as banned sugar. All single bridesmaids received an ultimatum: get engaged within 6 months or face being cut off completely. Mandatory dates with her pre-approved men were scheduled and tracked in a shared spreadsheet. When someone broke up with their assigned match, they were labeled a failure at love and commitment. A chart appeared in the group chat ranking everyone's marriage potential with brutal honesty. For friendships exploded, and one former bridesmaid obtained a restraining order. The Bachelorette party invitation revealed a $15,000 per person price tag for 10 days in Europe. Women who said they couldn't afford it were called poor excuses for friendship in the group chat. Suggestions to take out loans or max out credit cards were presented as reasonable solutions. One woman who declined received a 40-minute Instagram story rant about fake friends and betrayal. She went alone, posted constantly about having real friends, then sent bills to everyone who didn't attend. A 200-page rulebook arrived 2 weeks before the wedding, detailing bathroom schedules and approved conversation topics. Guests had assigned 10-minute bathroom windows and couldn't deviate from their allotted times. Talking about work, politics, or anything negative was grounds for immediate removal by security. Rules like no laughing louder than me and no dancing better than me were actually enforced. Half the guests left within the first hour, comparing it to wedding prison with a terrible warden. Each group photo required 30 to 40 retakes until they met her impossible, Instagram-worthy standards. The photo session lasted 6 full hours while dinner went cold and the expensive cake melted completely. People who blinked at the wrong moment were made to stand in the blazing sun as punishment. The hired photographer was fired on the spot and replaced when they said, "We have enough shots." The reception finally started at midnight because of her obsessive photo demands. Any woman deemed prettier than her received swift uninvitations, including the groom's own sister. Female guests had to submit photos weeks in advance for appearance approval before receiving final invitations. 2 women were rejected for being too thin, and another for having attention-seeking beautiful hair. An attempted rule to ban all makeup and hairstyling for female guests was proposed seriously. When people objected, the response was simple: my wedding, my beauty standards, no discussion. The maid of honor received an ultimatum: dump your boyfriend immediately because his energy is wrong for my wedding. Threats to remove her from the wedding party came with a 7-day deadline for the breakup. Choosing her relationship over the wedding resulted in private messages being posted publicly with traitor labels. Other bridesmaids were recruited for an intervention about the relationship. The friendship ended with blame placed entirely on the friend for ruining the wedding vibe with her selfishness. Every guest received links to specific designer outfits they were required to purchase, $2,000 minimum per person. Shoes, jewelry, and even undergarments were mandated purchases from approved retailers. Someone wearing a similar but cheaper version was publicly called out during speeches with receipts. A fashion enforcer stood at the entrance rejecting anyone not meeting exact specifications. 40 guests who traveled across the country were turned away at the door for minor violations. Attending the rehearsal dinner cost $500 per person, described as an exclusive event fee. The groom's family refused to pay and found themselves uninvited from the entire wedding. Live streaming the dinner included mocking commentary about people who couldn't afford the entry fee. The groom's mother eventually paid just to maintain family peace, then had a serious conversation with her son. The wedding proceeded, but the groom's family maintained a 5-year silence toward his wife. After the wedding, guests received a strange request: thank you notes to her for the privilege of witnessing her day. Pre-written templates arrived with instructions for handwritten copies mailed within 7 days. Anyone who didn't comply was publicly shamed on social media with full names and photos. Each thank you note received a grade that was posted online for everyone to see. An aunt's note deemed too short resulted in a house visit demanding a complete rewrite.